I thought it was going to be just another beautiful wedding, laughter, music, and memories. But what happened that day changed how I see people forever. 3 strangers did something so unexpected, it left me speechless. You won't believe what happened, so stay with me till the end. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden glow over the venue. The air buzzed with laughter, music, and the clinking of glasses. It was the kind of wedding people dreamed of, elegant yet warm, filled with love and excitement. I took a deep breath, feeling the joy in the air. Guests in vibrant outfits moved around, greeting each other with hugs and laughter. The bride, radiant in her gown, stood at the far end of the hall, talking to an elderly woman with a soft smile. The groom was nearby, shaking hands and sharing jokes. Everything was perfect. I wasn't particularly close to the couple, but I had been invited through a mutual friend. Weddings were always a mix of emotions, nostalgia, happiness, even a bit of longing. I watched couples sway to the soft music, some lost in their own little world. Then something caught my eye. 3 men stood near the back, dressed in sharp suits. They weren't mingling like the others. They stood slightly apart, speaking quietly among themselves. One of them, tall, with a serious face, glanced around the room as if searching for something. Another adjusted his cufflinks, his expression unreadable. The third, the youngest looking of the 3, had his hands in his pockets, shifting on his feet as if impatient. I don't know why, but I felt something. Not fear, not exactly unease, just a strange awareness of their presence. I brushed it off. Maybe they were just shy or didn't know many people here. Not everyone was comfortable in big crowds. Still, a small voice in the back of my mind whispered, "Something about them is different." Shaking off the thought, I turned back to the celebration. The night was just beginning, and I wasn't going to let my imagination run wild. But little did I know, those 3 men would soon change everything. As the evening unfolded, the wedding grew livelier. The music shifted from soft melodies to upbeat tunes, pulling guests onto the dance floor. Laughter echoed, glasses clinked, and the scent of fresh flowers mixed with the rich aroma of the buffet. It was the kind of night where joy seemed endless. But my mind kept drifting back to the 3 men. They hadn't moved much from their spot. Occasionally they'd lean in to speak softly to one another, glancing around the room with expressions that felt too serious for such a festive occasion. Maybe it was nothing, or maybe it was just human nature to notice the ones who didn't blend in. I told myself I was overthinking. Weddings attract all kinds of people, old friends, distant relatives, colleagues. They probably just didn't know many folks here. But curiosity has a funny way of clinging on, doesn't it? Later in the evening, as I navigated through the crowd with a plate of dessert, it happened. I accidentally bumped into someone. My plate wobbled, and I gasped, barely saving it from crashing to the floor. "Sorry," I blurted, looking up, and there he was. One of the 3 men. He was taller than I'd realized, with sharp features and an intense gaze. But it wasn't anger I saw in his eyes, just focus. He gave a quick nod, his expression unreadable. "No worries," he muttered, his voice low and calm. I forced a polite smile and moved past him, feeling my heart race for reasons I couldn't explain. It was such a small interaction, yet it left me oddly unsettled. As I rejoined my friends at the table, I noticed the 3 men again. This time they were watching something, or someone. Their attention seemed fixed on the far corner of the room, where a group of guests laughed over drinks. I couldn't see what had caught their interest, but their sharp focus sent a chill down my spine. Why are they here if they're not part of the celebration? I wondered. The night carried on, but that feeling lingered, a quiet tension beneath all the joy and laughter. I didn't know it then, but that brief encounter was just the beginning. Something was about to happen, something that would change the way I looked at people forever. The night grew deeper and the wedding sparkled with energy. Fairy lights twinkled like stars above the dance floor, casting a soft glow on the laughing faces below. Music pulsed through the air and people swayed with carefree joy. But beneath all the laughter, I felt a quiet tug in my chest, a lingering curiosity about those 3 men. I tried to shake it off, focus on the celebration, I told myself. So I joined my friends on the dance floor, letting the music drown out my thoughts. For a while it worked. The rhythm, the laughter, the warmth, it felt good to lose myself in the moment. But then everything changed. After dancing, I reached for my bag, which I'd left on a nearby chair. I froze. My bag was there, but it felt lighter. I quickly unzipped it, my heart skipping a beat. My wallet was gone. Panic gripped me like a cold hand. I checked again, frantically digging through every pocket, but it was nowhere to be found. My ID, cards, cash, everything important gone. My mind raced. Did I drop it? Did someone... I couldn't even finish the thought. I retraced my steps, scanning the floor, the chairs, the tables. My heart pounded louder than the music. Guests laughed and danced around me, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. And then I saw them. The 3 men. They were standing by the exit now, talking quietly. One of them glanced in my direction. My heart raced even faster. Could it be? The thought hit me like a wave. Were they watching me all along because they were planning something? Driven by a mix of fear and frustration, I walked toward them, my pulse thudding in my ears. But before I could say a word, one of the men stepped forward, his serious face now softer, almost concerned. "Are you looking for this?" he asked, holding out my wallet. I froze. For a second, I couldn't even process what I was seeing, my wallet right there in his hand. I reached out slowly, my fingers trembling. "Yes, I am. Where did you find it?" He exchanged a quick glance with his friends before replying. "We saw it fall from your bag when you were dancing. We tried to catch up, but you were moving around a lot." His words hit me like a jolt. The relief was overwhelming, but it was mixed with something else, shame. I had assumed the worst. My mind had painted them as suspicious, simply because they didn't fit the joyful mold of the party. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. I thought I lost it for good." One of the other men smiled slightly. "No worries, just glad we caught you before you left." As they walked away, disappearing into the crowd, I stood there holding my wallet, my heart heavy with gratitude and guilt. I had been so wrong about them. And this was just the beginning of the lesson I was about to learn. I stood there for a moment, clutching my wallet, feeling a strange mix of relief and embarrassment. The noise of the wedding faded into the background as my mind replayed the events of the night. How quickly I judged them, I thought. My instincts had painted a picture based on nothing more than glances and assumptions. I returned to my table, but the celebration around me felt distant now. My friends were laughing, caught up in the joy of the evening, unaware of the small yet profound storm brewing inside me. I sipped my drink, staring at the wallet in my hands, and couldn't shake the feeling of guilt. Why had I been so quick to assume the worst? I kept thinking about their faces, the quiet way they stood apart, their serious expressions. It wasn't that they were doing anything wrong. It was just that they were different from the carefree crowd. And somehow my mind had filled in the blanks with suspicion. Later, as the wedding wound down and people began saying their goodbyes, I saw the 3 men again. They were near the parking lot, chatting casually, their serious expressions now softened with laughter. This time they looked just like any other guests, ordinary, relaxed, human. I felt a pull to say something, to apologize maybe. But what would I even say? "Hey, sorry I judged you in my head?" It sounded silly. Instead, I walked over with a nervous smile. "Hey," I said, my voice a little shaky. They turned to me, their expressions open and friendly. "I just wanted to say thank you again. You really saved me a lot of trouble." The man who had returned my wallet, his name was Malik, I later learned, nodded with a warm smile. "No problem at all. Glad we could help." There was a pause, and then I blurted out, I thought you were suspicious at first. I'm really sorry about that." They exchanged amused glances, and Malik chuckled softly. "It's okay. People often assume things. We get it." His kindness hit me harder than I expected. They could have been offended, but they weren't. They were understanding, even gracious. That moment stayed with me, not because of what they did, but because of how they responded. I realized how easy it is to misjudge people based on nothing more than surface impressions. A serious face doesn't mean a bad heart. A quiet demeanor doesn't mean trouble. We carry biases without even realizing it, shaped by experiences, fears, and the stories we tell ourselves. As I drove home that night, the streets quiet and the city lights blurring past, I thought about how wrong I'd been. But sometimes it takes moments like these to see clearly. And this wasn't just a lesson about them. It was a lesson about me. The night came to a close and I found myself walking through the quiet parking lot, the cool air brushing against my skin. The wedding was over, the laughter and music now replaced by silence. The glow of the streetlights cast long shadows on the ground, and my mind was still swirling with thoughts of the three men, Malik and his friends. It had been a simple thing, really, a small, unspoken exchange. Yet it left me thinking about how often we see what we want to see, not the truth. How quickly we judge people based on our fears or our past experiences. How easily we let assumptions shape our actions, even when we don't have all the facts. As I sat in my car, starting the engine, I couldn't help but reflect on everything I'd learned that night. I thought about Malik's calm demeanor, the way he didn't hold a grudge despite my initial suspicion. I thought about how, despite their quietness, they had stepped in when it mattered most. What struck me the most wasn't just that they returned my wallet. It was that they did it without hesitation, without expecting anything in return. They saw someone in need, and without any fanfare, they helped. They didn't ask questions, didn't demand gratitude. They just acted with kindness. It made me think about how rare it is to encounter people like that. In a world where so much is driven by self-interest, where we often hide behind our own walls, there's something incredibly humbling about someone who simply does what's right. And yet, how often do we assume the worst about people who don't fit into our expectations? How many times have I, or anyone else, looked at someone and decided what they were like based on how they looked, or how they acted? We label, we categorize, we create stories that aren't true. But the truth is, we all have our own stories, our own reasons, and our own struggles. What we see on the outside doesn't always tell the whole story. As I drove home, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I had learned something that night, something far more important than just having my wallet returned. It was about understanding, about looking beyond the surface, about not letting fear and assumptions control how we see others. The world is full of unexpected lessons, and this was one of the most profound I had learned in a long time. So, next time you find yourself judging someone, ask yourself, what's their story? What might you be missing because you've already decided who they are? Sometimes it takes a small moment to open our eyes and change how we see the world. The people we least expect can teach us the most valuable lessons. Think about it.